Hello, I'm Jane from Talking Made Easy, and in today's video we're going to look at how to teach a child to say the S sound. The first step in our practice is going to be getting your child saying the S in the first place. Some children will tend to put their tongue through their teeth and create a lisp sound, a th, th. Others will put in other substitutions, such as you may hear a h instead of a s, for example in hun instead of sun, or you may hear done instead of sun. There are many variations of what you might hear in the place of the S sound. So let's get started on teaching S. The easiest way to start is for you to model the sound and see if your child can copy you. If your child is able to copy this sound, then you can move on to the next step. If not, let's have a look at some ways that we can encourage the S sound to come out. I always like to start by encouraging the child to show all of their teeth and then blowing through them. So you get them to do a big smile and then blow. Really overdo this one so that you can see all the teeth. If you encourage them to really overdo it, you're taking them away from their usual habit, so you're more likely to gain success because it's a completely different mouth shape. By putting your hands up here, you're giving a tactile cue that's reminding them to keep their mouth into this big, smiley, teethy shape. Another cue you can use is to encourage your child to keep their tongue behind the gate. This is particularly good if you're hearing a lispy sound, such as a let's keep that tongue inside the gate, the teeth of the gate, so you get them to close, and then blow. If that tongue sneaks out, I think I saw the tongue, let's put it back inside, let's put it back inside, let's try again. Don't forget to keep the tongue inside the gate. Once your child is able to produce that sound, we can start practicing. So step one in practice is to practice the sound on its own. I like to bring in an arm gesture here, as often children find it easy to learn sounds when they have a visual element to associate with it. So as you're practicing the sound in isolation or on its own, you can bring in your arm. Another way to make it fun for children is to practice blowing up like a balloon and letting the air out on a and you can flop to the floor. This is particularly good for children who are highly active. Another game you can play is creep up jack, where as you creep up on the person, you make the S sound. And as they turn around and spot you, you stop. You may also decide to crawl around the floor, going around the house as little snakes, practicing your as you go. Once your child can say that in isolation or on its own, you can move to the next stage, which is where you practice the sound with a vowel after it. For example, sa, say, si, saw, su. If your child is having trouble getting the sound when there's something after it, you can segment the sounds. S, a, s, a, s, e, and then you can start to blend them back together again. Sa, say, si, saw. You'll notice that I'm elongating the s before I bring in the next sound. This is giving the child the chance to really get their head around getting that sound out before they have to think about the next part. Sa. I'm also using hand gestures here. Hand gestures can be so helpful for children as they bring a visual element to the practice so that they can see the two parts. Sa, say. This can also turn into a really fun game because you can have your snake arm on that S and then high five on the second part. Sa, say. Again, it brings action and energy to the practice. As your child gets more confident with the sound plus a vowel, you can start to practice superhero poses as you go. Sa, say, si, saw. These games are purely to make the practice more interesting, and the visuals are there to help the child remember that there are two parts that they're trying to include. It doesn't matter what actions you choose, it's just about making it fun. And remember, if your child needs to go back to segmenting, s, a, s, a, s, e, or s, a, s, a, s, e, That is absolutely fine. And then you can start to blend them back together. Sa, say, si. Starting off by elongating that sound before moving to the second part, and then getting a bit faster. Sa, say, si. Once your child is confident with the sound plus a vowel, you can start to move into the s in words. This process is very similar to what we have just done with the sound plus a vowel, but we're now doing it with words. As you practice the s sound in words, you can start off by using your visuals and segmenting. S, un, s, e, s, op. And then you can start to blend back together. Sun, sea, soap. Once again, you'll notice that I am elongating as I start to blend. Sun, sea, soap. I've also added in another visual cue along the way. I have my s, un, and then my finger is coming to my mouth. This is a visual cue for the fact that we are moving from 1 to 2. S, un, s, e, soap. Sun, sea, soap. This cue on the chin pointing towards the mouth is simply another cue you can use that helps your child recognize that they have part 1 and part 2. S, un, soap. To practice your s sound, look out for things that start with that sound. Now, the reason that I've called it the s sound rather than the s sound is because s can be represented by things that start with both s and c in some cases. For example, sun and circle. Even though circle starts with a C, it has a S sound. So as you're looking out for items that you can label, whether it be in a storybook or items that are lying around your house, say them to yourself and just double check. Does this start with a S? It can be helpful when you find items that start with a S that you either gather them or make a list of what they are. So then you can have a pile of objects or a list of words that you know are your go-tos. This makes practice so much easier. So you may go for a treasure hunt around your house looking for things that start with a S. You might find a sock. You might find some soap. You might find a seat. You might find a sandal. You can collect these items and then practice them. Another great opportunity for practicing your S sound is when looking at a book. You can look through the pages and identify things that start with a S, or that you could at least incorporate a S word with. If you're struggling to find things that start with S, you might do an activity where you say, I see a, and as you're going through the book, you can identify what you're seeing. This means that even if the object or the picture that you're seeing doesn't start with that sound, you're still incorporating it through I see. So I could say, I see a sun, or I see a rabbit. I see a flower. This way you don't have to worry if you're finding it hard to find things that start with your S sound. Throughout this practice, it's important that your child has lots of opportunity. Repetition, repetition, repetition is the key to success. So we want to have a lot of goes at saying that S sound, whatever level they are at. So I recommend that you practice for at least 10 to 15 minutes every single day with your child, whether that be in a game that you're playing together, or you fit one of these activities into a day-to-day task. Both are just as beneficial as one another, as long as your child is getting the chance to practice. Finally, it's really important to recognize the importance of feedback. If your child gets a sound correct, you want to praise a specific sound. Oh, I loved that sound. That was such a great sound. Beautiful sound. If they don't get it correct, you want to praise their effort and move on. That was such a good try. Let's try the next one. Oh, you're trying so hard. It's a sun. So you pop in a model and then you move on. If your child is not getting a sound correct and you are moving on to the next target, popping in that model is really, really helpful for them because they are at least hearing the correct sound, and in time they'll be able to practice using it more and more themselves. Enjoy working on the sound, make it playful, bring the energy, and most importantly, have fun. Happy chatting.